These ports are not the best. They're just kind of hogged out there from the factory. And as you can kind of see, there's a lot of material there that can be taken off just to hold them in place. There's some short ones. They ain't got to be tightened down. Just to kind of see where we're at. And then I just trace them. I use the silver Sharpie and just give it a quick hit. I kind of hold them up the highest and down the lowest, and you can see where there's some material. You can see where there's material that you can take off here, and you can raise it up a little bit. Material you can take off there. And I just do it on both sides and just trace them with the Sharpie. And that kind of shows you kind of where you're sitting with the gasket, how much material there is. That's a lot of flow. And you guys know flow is horsepower. Hey, if you're here right now, smash that like button, like, share, and subscribe. You can see where the gasket rode and how much shrouding, how much you're missing out on. Big chunk here, big chunk here. All right, and all we're going to do is we're just going to match that port with that port. You can take material off of this and get a lot of flow into the combustion chamber. It's just a nice basic head. Now, yes, you can spend thousands of dollars on CNC machines, this, that, and everything, but you're not turning 8,000 RPMs with a 4-bolt main 350. You're just not. You're turning 5,500 at most on the street. You can spend the money, but just for a solid, reliable, fun to drive truck, this is where I'm going. This is not that difficult of a job. You just got to be careful, and you got to go slow. And you can do this a couple of ways. So as you can see where the marker marked. And also on this one, I took a little straight edge and I set it basically with the marker spot, and I scribed a couple of times just to get a point of reference on where I want to go. And then the other one is these two pieces of tape. This is I don't go past this spot. So this is I'll do this on all of these that I do. But basically we're going to take this chunk out, these corners out, some here. We're going to clean this up, make this straight in the center. And we're going to port this out here and port this out here and clean this all up. And there's some dimples on the bottom here that are casting marks. Whenever they're cast, we're going to clean those. And what I'm going to use is this. And then this is Chicago. This is a Harbor Freight. I've had this 25 years, and she's never let me down. And a lot of guys will say use air and use little guns so you can get in there. No, I like this because I'm going to get my hand in here, and I'm going to use this as a brace, and I'm going to work it on the backside with this hand. And we're just going to work this around, and we're just going to take this material out because this is a nice solid. You're not free-handed. When you're free-handed, you're going to make a mistake. So I'm going to have a nice solid base to work off of. And this right here, this is my favorite. And the reason this is my favorite is that it perfectly matches the corner of this gasket. That is the size that needs to fit in these corners down here. See, it's almost a perfect match right here. So that's why I like this one. Now, if I'm doing a set of heads like a big block set of heads, I like using this one because it's basically the same all the way up towards this end. I don't know if you can tell, this has been well used. I've used this thing a lot over the years. This is all you need to do a really nice pocket porting, port matching job on a set of heads. And this can work for Mopar, GM, Ford, whatever you're running. This will work on everything that you do. All right, so now that I got my tape in place, I have my borderline I'm going to. Let's get started. And this is going to be loud, so we're going to go in a time lapse, and because she zings. And as you can see, you're going to hog out. You're going to make a lot of dust. And those are kind of hot. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of a towel. Wrap our arm a little bit with that towel. So that's getting a little hot. Get in there. Yep, get in there. But that's how much material we're taking off. We're already blended this side here and opened up and blended here and blended on the bottom. So she's getting pretty clean. She's coming along. Yeah, there we go. Now we're nice and smooth. Okay, now this is kind of your call, and this is kind of like whatever you want to do. I'm pretty close here. I'm happy here, here, and here, and I've got it smoothed out. It's nice and smooth. There's no rough dimples. It's a nice transition in here. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's really kind of matches up. You're going to make a lot of mess, but it really it just cleans it up, unshades it. Look how nice that is. How much better that is compared to, say, this. Well, this is the original. All that casting shit in the corners. You just get a lot better charge, smoother. More air means more power, guys. It's time consuming. And to do it right and do a really top-notch job, that's why the CNC machine poured stuff works so well, because it can be replicated over and over and over again, and it looks, you know, like a picture, and it's beautiful. But as you can tell, I'm doing all this again before we ever go to the machine shop. So it can be vatted, it can be cleaned, and all this debris, because you're going to make a lot of debris. And it's times 8, because you're doing eight cylinders. That's a lot of debris. But that's as simple as it gets. Mark it, scribe it, use tape on it. As you can tell, I slipped once, but it didn't do any damage. The tape helps that too if you slip. But it's just a nice guide, and that's about how it is. Like I said, you can either do the tape, you can actually take an old gasket and put it on there and use that as a guide. You can, if you don't mind messing up if you have an old one sitting around, you can bolt it up to the thing and just use it as a guide. I like for the centerpiece here, I don't know if you can see it, there's a line scribed right here that I'm going to work to, that I just used my scribe and a straight edge, and I just rubbed it a couple times to get it to the right place. And like that, if you wanted to scribe this way, you could. If you wanted to scribe this way, you could. But just a little, that's just a little straight edge. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be meticulous, but it's just, you're just blending it out. And I got a little spot here I still want to do, because there's a rough spot here on the edge of this intake. But the runners are smooth. She's nice. And just run your finger up and down just like you do a paint job. I mean, you'll feel it, the high and low spots, and just work it out. And it's just time consuming. It's one of those, you're going to need an afternoon to do a decent job. I remember I did one pair. I think it took me a week to do them, because I was working in the evenings in my mom and dad's house when I was still living there when I was a kid. And I had a Dremel tool. I didn't have this. I had a Dremel tool, and I did a set of heads with a Dremel. Think about how long that's going to take. We've got this part done. We'll take the tape off so you can see. We'll just show you the differences. All right, see these things right here? Those are casting marks. This is just junk. This is just imperfections from the factory. This is the way they came, okay? And I don't know if the light is good enough in there, but you can see it's not the cleanest, it's not the most efficient setup there is, okay? Now compared to this. Now I've cleaned up the dimple. You can still see they're almost there a little bit, but I've cleaned up the ramps, I've cleaned up the edges up through here, smoothed them out, went up the sides a little bit, on those, worked a lot of material off the side of that, Now these aren't completely done, but that's where I started, and this is a half an hour later. That is 10 times better. You can pretty much do this however you want to do it, but after doing this one, as you can see how it turned out, nice and smooth on the inside, transition to smooth, corners are pretty good. I got a little nick. I jumped and it kind of skipped out of there, but that's not going to hurt anything. I'm gonna leave it alone. But all in all, there's been some material moved, and that is much better than that. So, or this. So what we're gonna do, so far that one's about 2 hours. So we're gonna do this. So for a good set, like my headlight, my eye protection, because this throws bits everywhere, and they're hot, and those bits get hot, and that bit, it gets hot. Don't grab a hold of it because it's gonna be warm. But if you've been grinding for a living as long as I did, just basically give me some guidelines and I'll stay inside that. So I got tape right around. This is my parameters. This is what I'm working. And so we're going to clean this up, and I know where I'm going. I'm going to scribe that. I'm going to take some straight line, scribe that, but we're going to make it look just like that, nice and straight. And that's all freehanded, guys, besides my marker and my piece of tape. So do whatever you do that you're comfortable, but this is a very time consuming, but this is not difficult to do, and this will make those heads work much better than stock. Even if you wanted to, you could tape each individual port to give you an idea about how much material you're taking off. It's pretty much that simple. And if you just wanted to check it, tape's there, tape's there, tape's bottom, tape's top. So you don't necessarily have to have the gasket, but a gasket is a great guide, but you can do it this way too. And that gives you parameters of where you're working and what you're cleaning up. So you can get something that looks like that. So boom, nice. Boom, nice. This is original, and this is after the fact. Now, it's not perfect, but it's a damn sight better than that. And this is the other side. I just did one set of the heads, about 3 hours worth. Really not that bad. I'm not too terribly bad. I was going to check some rabbits today. Yep, compared to the originals, there's a lot of meat, a lot of flow, casting marks, junk. There's just, from the factory, they're not cleaned very well. They're just kind of made. But this is one of those set of heads that there's a lot of meat involved. There's a lot of extras. But that's a before, and that's an after. And that's You can do this at home with your own tools on your own time, and you can do it with either tape or just an old gasket. Just use it as a guide and make yourself a set of heads that flows very well.